I still remember the sound of my mother's voice. The night everything broke. It wasn't angry, it was calm. Polite and final, she said my name, the way people do when they've already decided to let you go. That was the moment I knew I was no longer family. Just a problem standing between them and money. My father didn't even look at me. My brother stared at the floor. Papers lay on the table, glowing under the yellow light, filled with numbers that mattered more than my tears. They told me the house had to be sold, the business transferred, the future secured. My future was not part of that sentence. I had worked beside them for years, unpaid, unseen, believing loyalty would protect me. Instead, loyalty became the reason they used me. When I asked where I fit into their plans, my mother said I was strong enough to start over. Strong enough meant disposable. I packed my clothes in silence while they discussed bank accounts. No one stopped me. No one hugged me. Outside, the night air felt colder than betrayal. I walked away with nothing but a small bag and a heart full of questions that had no answers. On the bus ride to a friend's sofa, I watched the city lights blur and wondered how love could turn into a transaction so easily. That was the first lesson money taught my family. It showed them who they truly were. It showed me how alone I could be and still keep breathing. I promised myself I would never beg them to choose me again. If they wanted wealth without me, I would learn how to survive without them. That promise hurt more than leaving, but it was the only thing I had left. The weeks after I left felt heavier than the night I walked out. Silence became my companion. No calls, no messages, no missed voices asking if I was safe. It was as if I had vanished from their world the moment I stopped being useful. I slept on a borrowed mattress and counted every coin before buying bread. Pride kept me from asking for help. Even when hunger pressed against my ribs, I replayed old memories like broken songs, searching for signs that I had never really belonged. Every sacrifice I made suddenly felt foolish. I had skipped opportunities, relationships, and dreams to support the family business. Now that business carried my brother's names, not mine, I applied for jobs quietly, enduring polite rejections and tired smiles. At night, I cried into a pillow so no one could hear. Pain became a private language. I spoke fluently, yet in that silence, something else began to grow. I noticed how peaceful it felt not to argue, not to explain myself, not to prove my worth. I started writing again, something I had abandoned years ago. Words gave me space to breathe. I took temporary work, learned new skills, and listened more than I spoke. Each small step felt invisible, but it mattered to me. I stopped checking my phone for messages that would never come. Instead, I focused on surviving one day at a time. The injustice still burned, but it no longer controlled me. I realized my family had taken my security, not my ability. They had chosen money, but they had also chosen to underestimate me. In that quiet realization, I found strength I didn't know existed. I wasn't healing yet, I was preparing. And preparation, I learned, is a form of hope that doesn't make noise. Months passed, and my life began to take a shape that didn't include my family. Shadow. I found steady work at a small firm that valued effort over connections. For the first time, my ideas were heard without being stolen. I stayed late, learned fast, and absorbed everything like survival depended on it. Because it did, my confidence grew slowly, built on results rather than approval. One evening, an old client recognized my name. He remembered how I had once managed negotiations for my family, how calm and sharp I was. He asked why I wasn't working with them anymore. I smiled and said I was building something of my own. That conversation changed everything. Opportunities opened not loudly, but steadily. I started consulting independently, earning respect that felt real. Meanwhile, news from home reached me through distant relatives. The business wasn't doing as well without me. Decisions were rushed, trust was misplaced. Money that once looked endless began to leak away. I felt no joy hearing this. Only clarity. Karma doesn't rush. It observes. I didn't interfere. I didn't announce my progress. Silence had become my strategy. While they scrambled to protect what they had taken, I focused on creating something untouchable. I moved into my own place, small but peaceful. Each bill I paid with my own earnings felt like justice in motion. I understood then that revenge didn't need anger. It needed patience and dignity. My family had chosen money, believing it would protect them. I was choosing growth, knowing it would change me. The difference was simple. Money can disappear, strength compounds. And mine was finally beginning to show. The call came on a rainy afternoon. My father's number lit up my screen. After nearly a year of silence, I let it ring, feeling the weight of every ignored moment. When I finally answered, his voice sounded older, uncertain. He spoke about mistakes, misunderstandings, and difficult times. He didn't apologize, he asked for help. The business was failing, debts were piling up. My brothers needed guidance. As he spoke, I realized something powerful. They still saw me as a solution, not a daughter. I listened calmly, the rain tapping against the window like a quiet warning. I told him I was no longer involved in family matters. He reminded me of blood, of shared history. I reminded him of the night they chose money over me. The silence on the other end felt heavier than any insult. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain myself again. I simply said I wish them well, and ended the call. My hands trembled afterward, but my heart felt steady for the first time. I had chosen myself without guilt. That evening I signed a contract that secured my future. My work was being recognized beyond expectations. I realized justice doesn't always arrive as punishment. Sometimes it arrives as independence. I wasn't happy because they were struggling. I was peaceful because I was no longer tied to their choices. That peace was expensive. It cost me a family, but it gave me freedom and freedom. I learned is worth more than inheritance ever could be. As my career grew, so did my understanding of power. Real power is quiet, it doesn't beg for attention or validation. I invested wisely, partnered carefully, and protected my name like a shield. People began to associate my work with trust. Invitations came from places I once dreamed about in secret. Meanwhile, my family's situation worsened. Properties were sold, promises were broken. The same relatives who once ignored me now spoke my name with respect. I didn't correct them. I didn't boast. I simply kept moving forward. One day my mother showed up unannounced at my office. She looked smaller, less certain. Her eyes searched my face for the daughter she remembered controlling. She spoke softly, blaming circumstances, blaming others. I offered her water and listened. When she finished, she asked if we could be a family again. I asked her one question: if there had been no money involved, would she have chosen me then? She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I stood up and thanked her for coming. I told her I forgave her, but forgiveness didn't mean access. Boundaries were the justice I owed myself. She left without arguing. I felt no victory, only closure. I understood then that my comeback didn't require their acknowledgement. My dignity was enough. I had transformed pain into structure, betrayal into focus. Karma had not destroyed them for me. It had simply removed me from their protection. And without me, they faced the consequences of their own choices. Time revealed truths that emotions once hid. I saw how deeply my family had relied on me, while pretending I was replaceable. Their collapse wasn't sudden. It was slow, inevitable, and rooted in arrogance. I never celebrated their losses. Instead, I honored my growth. I mentored young women who reminded me of my past self, loyal and overlooked. I taught them to value themselves before sacrificing for others. Every lesson felt like healing. I received an award for my work, my name engraved in metal, permanent and undeniable. My family heard about it. Through the same channels they once used to exclude me, they sent messages of pride, as if pride could erase abandonment. I replied politely, briefly. I no longer needed their approval. I had built a life that didn't collapse when others withdrew. Love. I understood that karma isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle alignment. They lost control. I gained clarity. They chased money. I built purpose. That contrast was enough. I stood in my apartment one night looking at the city lights again, remembering the girl on the bus with nothing but a bag and a promise. I smiled at her strength. She had survived the worst and turned it into direction. That was my real inheritance. If there is one truth my story holds, it is this: when people choose money over you, let them. Their choice reveals their limits, not your value. My family believed wealth would protect them from consequence. They forgot that character is the foundation money stands on. When that foundation cracks, everything falls. I lost my family. But I found myself. I learned that silence can be louder than arguments, and dignity stronger than revenge. Karma didn't ask me to fight. It asked me to grow today. I live without fear of being replaced or discarded. I choose relationships that don't require me to disappear. I choose work that respects my worth. I carry no bitterness, only boundaries. My family made their decision. Karma made its own, and I finally made mine.